The Queen's Shadow and the Witch of Blackwell. London, 1853. The streets of London were never silent. Not truly. Even in the hours before dawn, when most of the city lay curled in uneasy sleep, there remained a constant murmur. The distant clatter of carriage wheels on stone, the hiss and sputter of gas lamps, the cough of some unseen laborer rising too early or too late for honest rest. The city breathed like a great animal, its lungs blackened by coal smoke, its arteries clogged with refuse and humanity alike. Sir Nicholas Windsor walked these streets as though they belonged to him. He moved with an economy of motion that drew little notice, his long black coat brushing just above his boots, his gloved hands folded behind his back. He was a tall man, spare rather than broad, with the erect posture of one who had once worn a uniform and never quite learned how to remove it. His hair, dark and touched with iron gray at the temples, was kept trimmed and orderly, though London's damp had a habit of curling it despite his efforts. His face was narrow, intelligent, and severe, marked by a thin scar along the left jaw, a souvenir from a forgotten assignment that no one dared ask him about. His eyes were what unsettled people most. Pale blue and unblinking, they carried the disconcerting impression that Sir Nicholas Windsor was always listening to something beyond the ordinary range of human hearing. Queen Victoria called him her shadow. Officially, Sir Nicholas Windsor did not exist. There was no record of his appointment, no parliamentary authorization, no ledger in which his salary was recorded. He answered to no minister and no magistrate. When crimes threatened the stability of the crown, when scandal, panic, or something altogether stranger loomed, Sir Nicholas was summoned quietly to Buckingham Palace and sent forth without witnesses. On this particular morning, he had been summoned to a narrow alley off Fleet Street, where a man lay dead beneath a gas lamp that flickered like a failing star. Inspector Harold Fletcher stood nearby, hat clutched nervously in both hands. Fletcher was a solid, practical man, red-faced and perpetually weary, the sort who believed in procedures and paperwork because they were solid things in a city that so often defied reason. "Third one this month," Fletcher said as Sir Nicholas approached. "Same manner, same hand." Sir Nicholas did not respond at once. He knelt beside the body, ignoring the damp that seeped through the knees of his trousers. The dead man's throat had been cut with meticulous precision. There was no tearing, no hesitation. Whoever had wielded the blade had known exactly where to place it. Sir Nicholas felt a cold tightening behind his ribs. He had seen this cut before. "Name?" he asked quietly. "Jonathan Pike," Fletcher replied. "Former clerk at the Crown Court." Sir Nicholas closed his eyes for a brief moment. Jonathan Pike had testified 3 years earlier in a case that had shaken certain quiet corridors of power. He had spoken of blood, of women disappearing from the East End, of a surgeon who claimed curiosity as justification for horror. Pike had wept on the stand, hands trembling as though the truth itself were burning him from the inside. The surgeon's name had been Edmund Hale. Sir Nicholas Windsor had killed him. "Sir," Fletcher ventured, "do you think it's the same fellow as before?" Sir Nicholas rose slowly. "I think," he said, "that someone wishes us to believe so." "But Hale was hanged," Fletcher said. "No," Sir Nicholas replied. "He was not." 3 years earlier, beneath an abandoned apothecary in Lambeth, Edmund Hale had knelt in candlelight and argued for his life with a surgeon's calm. "You are making an error," Hale had said, his voice steady despite the rope biting into his wrists. "History will correct you." Sir Nicholas had listened without reply. He had already read the reports, memorized the autopsy sketches, studied the women who would never again walk London's streets. Hale spoke of knowledge and progress. Sir Nicholas spoke only once. "This ends now." The knife had gone in cleanly. Hale's body was buried in unconsecrated ground near Blackwell Marsh. Sir Nicholas had watched the earth fall. No prayers were spoken. No bells rang. Hale was dead. Sir Nicholas had never doubted it. Until now. London felt the change before it understood it. Dogs refused certain streets. Church bells rang when no hand pulled their ropes. The fog grew thicker, heavier, clinging to the throat like damp fingers. Another body was found 2 nights later, then another. All had testified against Edmund Hale. Sir Nicholas followed the pattern eastward, into the darker quarters of the city. Whitechapel teemed with life, even at night. Markets closing reluctantly, children darting between carts, the smell of fish and refuse mingling with coal smoke. Tall brick buildings leaned inward, their windows crowded with watching faces. Workhouses loomed like fortresses of despair, their iron gates swallowing the desperate each morning. Beyond them lay Blackwell. The ground softened there, marshland pressing against the river's bend. Houses grew crooked, roofs sagging beneath the weight of damp years. It was a place London preferred to forget. There, people whispered of a woman, a widow, a witch. Her name was Eliza Morcant. Eliza Morcant's house stood near the marsh's edge, its windows clouded with grime and candle smoke. The door bore no knocker. Sir Nicholas entered without ceremony. The air inside smelled of dried herbs, damp earth, and something older, something that belonged beneath the ground rather than above it. Eliza was thin, her iron-gray hair pulled back severely. Her eyes were dark and sharp, burning with a grief that had long since curdled into purpose. "You walk with the dead," she said, before he could speak. "I walk with truth," Sir Nicholas replied. "You murdered my son." "Yes." The word fell heavily between them. "You denied him justice," Eliza hissed. "He denied others life." Her hands trembled, not with fear, but fury. "The Queen allowed it. The Queen ordered it." Sir Nicholas did not deny this either. Eliza smiled then, slow and terrible. "Then she will learn what it is to lose a child." Sir Nicholas felt the chill of understanding settle into his bones. Far away, in Buckingham Palace, Queen Victoria sat alone before a dying fire, unaware that the dead were already walking toward her. London did not panic all at once. Panic, Sir Nicholas Windsor knew, was like rot. It began in hidden places, in whispers, in glances held a moment too long, in doors bolted earlier each night. Only later did it bloom into something visible. By the time the 4th body was found, the city had begun to whisper. The man lay in a churchyard near Spitalfields, half in shadow, half in the pale wash of moonlight. His throat bore the same precise wound. His hands were folded neatly upon his chest, as though he had lain down willingly. Sir Nicholas stood at the edge of the graveyard, while Inspector Fletcher crossed himself. "This isn't right," Fletcher muttered. "There's no sign of struggle at all. It's as if he knew what was coming." Sir Nicholas did not answer. He was watching the shadows between the tombstones, aware of a strange pressure behind his eyes, a sensation he had felt only rarely in his life, usually when standing too close to violence yet to occur. "Who is he?" Sir Nicholas asked. "Thomas Reed," Fletcher replied. "Former clerk. Testified against Hale, same as the others." Sir Nicholas closed his eyes. 4 witnesses, 4 dead men, all executed with the same surgeon's care. Edmund Hale had been thorough in life. It seemed he remained so in death. Sir Nicholas returned to his rooms near St. James's as dawn broke, the city slowly reasserting itself. Milkmaids crossed streets slick with last night's rain. Chimney sweeps emerged like soot-stained ghosts. The smell of bread rose from bakeries already at work. Inside, his rooms were sparse. A desk, a narrow bed, shelves of carefully ordered files. On the mantel sat a single object wrapped in oilcloth. Hale's knife. Sir Nicholas unwrapped it slowly. The blade caught the light, clean and unblemished. He had never cleaned it. A memory stirred, unbidden and unwelcome. Hale's body on the cellar floor, the blood pooling dark and hot. The weight of certainty. Sir Nicholas felt something cold coil in his chest. For the first time in his life, he questioned not the morality of what he had done, but the finality. The next night, Sir Nicholas returned to Blackwell Marsh. Fog lay thick over the ground, drifting low among the reeds. The river moved sluggishly nearby, its surface broken only by the occasional ripple of something unseen passing beneath. The abandoned apothecary crouched at the marsh's edge, its brick walls split and sagging, its windows long shattered. Sir Nicholas entered with a lantern in one hand and his revolver in the other. Inside, the air was heavy with the scent of wax and damp stone. He saw the markings immediately. Chalk sigils scored the floor in broad, deliberate strokes. Circles overlapped like diagrams from an anatomy text, heart intersecting lung, throat crossing spine. Candles stood at regular intervals, their wicks burned low and black. This was no mad scribbling. It was method. Sir Nicholas knelt, studying the symbols. They were not purely occult, nor purely scientific. They borrowed freely from both worlds. Latin medical notations twisted into something ritualistic, anatomical precision married to superstition. A voice spoke behind him. "You see now." Sir Nicholas rose slowly. Eliza Morcant stood in the doorway, her silhouette framed by fog. She looked older than she had days earlier, as though each working of her art carved years from her flesh. "You taught yourself this," Sir Nicholas said. "I learned," she replied, "from books your world pretended did not exist, from women your world burned, or drowned, or starved, and from my son. He was a murderer. He was brilliant," her voice cracked, "and you killed him like a dog." "I stopped him." Eliza stepped closer. "You stopped nothing. You buried it. And buried things rot." Sir Nicholas felt the weight of her certainty press against him. "How many?" he asked. "As many as it takes." The dead did not rise screaming. They rose quietly. In alleys where paupers lay forgotten, in potters' fields where coffins rotted open, in shallow graves where men had been buried without names or prayers. Eliza Morcant did not restore souls. She bound flesh. Sir Nicholas encountered the first of them near Wapping. The thing that came at him wore the body of a dockhand, its skin gray and slack, its eyes dull yet fixed with terrible purpose. It did not snarl. It did not speak. It simply advanced. Sir Nicholas fired twice. The bullets tore through muscle and bone, barely slowing it. He seized a fallen torch and drove the burning end into its chest. The thing collapsed, twitching, the smell of scorched flesh filling the air. Sir Nicholas stood shaking, not with fear, but with understanding. This was no murderer. This was an army. Buckingham Palace received Sir Nicholas after midnight. Queen Victoria sat rigid at her desk, dressed in mourning black, her face pale and resolute. "They are walking," Sir Nicholas said, without preamble. "I know," the Queen replied. "I have been warned." "By whom?" "A woman who lost her son," Sir Nicholas stiffened. "She wrote me," Victoria continued. "She named you, she named Hale, she named herself wronged." "You ordered his execution," Sir Nicholas said. "I ordered silence," the Queen replied. "You chose the method." The words struck harder than any blow. "If she reaches you," Sir Nicholas began. "She will try," Victoria said calmly. "And you will stop her." Sir Nicholas left the palace with the weight of the realm pressing on his shoulders. In Blackwell, Eliza Morcant prepared her final working. At the center of her circle lay Edmund Hale. His flesh bore the marks of death and resurrection alike, skin drawn tight, throat a ruined seam. His eyes opened at her command. "You will walk where the living cannot," she whispered. "You will go where blades are forbidden." Hale rose, not alive, not dead, obedient. London slept uneasily, and somewhere beneath its streets, a dead man learned once more how to kill. Night settled over London like a shroud. The fog rolled in from the river thicker than Sir Nicholas had ever known it, muffling sound and swallowing distance. Gas lamps glowed like dying embers, their light failing to pierce more than a few feet ahead. Carriages moved at a crawl. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell tolled the hour, though no one could later swear which church it had been. Sir Nicholas Windsor moved through the streets with grim purpose, his coat drawn tight, his breath steady despite the ache in his chest. He felt London watching him, the stones, the buildings, the river itself, as though the city understood that something ancient and terrible had been set in motion. Edmund Hale was walking toward Buckingham Palace. Not openly, not as a man might walk. He passed through servants' corridors, through forgotten postern gates, through shadows that living men rarely noticed. Flesh that no longer breathed did not tire. Muscles that felt no pain did not falter. Sir Nicholas knew Hale's habits too well. He had studied the man once, memorized his patterns, anticipated his movements. Hale had always favored precision over force, silence over spectacle. Death, to him, had been an intimate act. Tonight would be no different. Buckingham Palace stood luminous against the fog, its vast facade softened by mist and lamplight. Guards paced the outer gates, their boots striking stone in steady rhythm. Inside, the palace slept fitfully, its countless rooms hushed beneath layers of velvet and history. Queen Victoria sat alone in her private sitting room, a single lamp burning beside her. She wore mourning black, as she had for years, but tonight there was no embroidery, no ornament, only severity. She was not afraid. She had ruled too long for that. Yet when the fire guttered suddenly, she looked up. Sir Nicholas entered the palace through a side passage known only to a handful of men sworn to silence. His boots made no sound on the polished floor. Every sense he possessed strained forward, alert to the slightest disturbance. He felt it before he saw it, a coldness, unnatural and absolute. Hale stood at the far end of the corridor, his figure half obscured by fog that had somehow crept indoors. His movements were stiff yet purposeful, his head tilted slightly, as though listening. "You should not be here," Sir Nicholas said softly. Hale turned. His throat was a ruin, blackened flesh drawn tight over bone, the wound Sir Nicholas had made unmistakable. His eyes, once sharp with intellect, were now dull yet fixed. "You ended me," Hale rasped, his voice like air dragged through mud. "Now I end what you serve." Sir Nicholas drew Hale's knife. "I already ended you," he said. "This is excess." Hale advanced. The first blow shattered a mirror, glass exploding across the corridor. Hale moved with relentless strength, uncaring of injury. Sir Nicholas struck again and again, blade biting into dead flesh that bled dark and sluggish. Still Hale came on. Sir Nicholas was driven backward, boots slipping on shattered glass, breath ragged now. Hale seized him by the throat, fingers cold and iron strong. "You taught me where men break," Hale said. "She taught me obedience." Sir Nicholas forced his hand downward, driving the blade into Hale's chest, into the crude circle carved there, the witch's binding etched into flesh. Blood spilled, not Hale's, but Sir Nicholas's, drawn by the ritual's hunger. The circle flared. Hale screamed, not in rage, in release. The binding shattered. Hale collapsed, his body finally obeying the laws of death it had defied. Sir Nicholas staggered back, breath burning, and watched Edmund Hale die for the second and final time. Eliza Morcant felt it at once. The bond snapped like a tendon pulled too far. She cried out and fell to her knees amid the candles and bones of her working, her strength draining away in a sudden, catastrophic rush. "My son," she whispered. The magic had taken everything. At dawn, she was found in the ruins of Blackwell Chapel, her body thin and still, her face peaceful at last. The Queen summoned Sir Nicholas at sunrise. He stood before her, bloodied, exhausted, and very old. "It is finished," he said. Victoria regarded him in silence for a long moment. "And the cost?" "Considerable," Sir Nicholas replied. She nodded once. "Then it shall be buried." By her order, the marsh was salted, the bodies were burned, the records sealed. London was told nothing. Weeks passed. The fog thinned. Dogs returned to the streets. Church bells rang only when summoned by human hands. London resumed its endless labor, unaware of how close death had come to its throne. Sir Nicholas Windsor returned to walking its streets. He moved a little more slowly now. The city's sounds pressed closer. The weight of memory settled heavier upon his shoulders. He had killed once in the Queen's name, and twice in defense of her life. He wondered, sometimes, whether the dead truly stayed buried, or whether London simply learned to live above them. On certain nights, when the fog lay thick and the river whispered against its banks, Sir Nicholas would pause beneath a gas lamp and listen. Not for footsteps, for memory. London remembered everything. And so did he. For as long as the crown required a shadow, Sir Nicholas Windsor would remain it, walking the narrow road between justice and damnation, keeping the dead where they belonged.